All right, so you're just getting started with candles and you want to know what supplies to get. Well, I'm going to spend this video telling you exactly what to get and throw them up right here as I talk about them. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff Standley with Standley Handcrafted and welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, I make videos all about candles, candle making, candle business, and everything around it. So this video is going to be more for the beginner or somebody just getting into candle making who's looking to find out exactly what to get. Now, of course, there are a lot of different supplies out there that you can get, but just getting into candle making, you don't need to go all out and get like a $1,000 melter. You can start out somewhat cheap getting into this. So I'm going to go through and talk about some of the basic supplies that you need to get started and then what you need to get to basically go from the beginner level to the intermediate level and then some of the expert level. All right, so with candle making, the basics that you're gonna need are a vessel, wax, wick, and oils, and then of course something to melt the wax with. I would say probably the most important thing to start out with is going to be your wax. Do a little bit of research. There's a bunch of different waxes out there that you can start with, from soys to coconut soys to paraffins, a lot of different blends which take soy, coconut, and paraffin and blend them together. So I would tell anyone starting out to definitely start there and find out what wax you want to work with. You can look at a bunch of different pictures online, and a bunch of different websites will tell you what's in the wax. So what do you want your candle to look like? What kind of ingredients or products you want in your wax, and how well you want your wax to throw or your candle to throw, which means how well it's going to throw the scent when it's being lit. Once you figure out your wax, you're going to want to find out what wick to get. And again, there's a bunch of different wick options. And of course, once you find your wax, you're going to want to find what wick works best in that wax. And there are certain wicks that don't really work well in certain waxes. So you definitely want to do a little bit of research there. And of course, there are a few different wick options, from a bunch of different cotton wicks to wooden wicks. But just starting out, I would say cotton wicks are probably the easiest to start out with. They're a little bit easier to work with, a little bit easier to get a consistency from your candle. And when you start to look for wicks, like I said, you're going to see wooden wicks, you're going to see cotton wicks like CDs, and this is just the name of basically the brand of the wick or the type of wick that you're going to be using, from CD to Premier to HTP, and a dozen others that work very well, but work well with specific waxes. Then of course, once you find your wick, you're going to want to find a vessel. I tell anybody starting out in candle making, choose one vessel that you want to use and master that one before you move on to other types of vessels. And what I mean by that is there's a bunch of different vessels. This is a 9-ounce vessel, this is a 4-ounce vessel, and you will get different burns from different wicks in each vessel. That's why it's important, once you find your wax and you find your vessel, you're going to want to find your wick size based on that vessel. And this is the reason I tell people to find one vessel and master that one before you move on to other vessels, because it is a little bit of a chore to find the right wick size for the right vessel. And I did this in the very beginning. I went out and bought probably 6 or 8 different vessels and a few different wicks, and I was just putting a bunch of different wicks or the same wicks in every single vessel, and of course half of them didn't work, if not most of them didn't work, and it made the beginning process even longer than it should have been. So find one vessel that you want to use, like a jelly jar or the 9-ounce straight jar that I just had, and get probably 3 or 4 different sizes in the wick that works with the wax that you've chosen, and make a few different testers before you move on to any other vessel. Now of course, once you've found your vessel and your wick, you're going to want to place your wick, and to place the wick, you're going to want to use some type of adhesive to put the wick in the bottom of the jar. Now just starting out, a lot of people will use wick stickers, and I'll put them right here. A lot of people will use hot glue, or something that I recommend is red RTV. And all 3 of these methods work extremely well. Wick stickers work very well. You can get some that are a little bit more sticky or adhesive. High heat or high temperature hot glue works very well, but I have found these to be a little bit more inconsistent, or the wicks will pull out sometimes when you're burning a candle, whereas I've found red RTV to be the most consistent and the best out of anything. And red RTV, if you don't know, is a gasket adhesive. It's meant for engines, which means it withstands heat well above 400 degrees, which is hotter than your candle's ever going to get. And when you squeeze out a little bit, it comes out just like glue. You put it on the bottom of the wick tab. You put it on the bottom of the wick tab, you let it sit for an hour, and after 24 hours, it hardens like cement. That wick is going absolutely nowhere once you use it. But one of the issues with red RTV is you do need to let it sit in the vessel for about an hour before you want to pour your wax, just to give it time to really really set in the bottom. And then of course, like I said, after 24 hours, it hardens like cement and that wick is going nowhere. Once you get all that set and you start melting your wax, you're going to want to move to oils. And there are a ton of different oils. I'll put some links in the video description down below, but there are a lot of different oils. And when you're starting out, again, I would say get a fragrance that you know you're going to like, because you're going to be doing a lot of testing with it. And of course, having a candle or a candle fragrance that you like is going to make testing that much more enjoyable. So if you like something like myself, like cinnamon, burning 5, 6, 7, 8 candles with cinnamon for weeks at a time is going to be real nice when you're doing all your testing. The next supply that I would tell somebody to get is a pouring pitcher. Now you can start out and get a melter, but for beginners, I always say get a pouring pitcher. You can use them quite a bit. You can put 3 to 4 pounds in a pitcher and get quite a few candles out of that. And they're fairly cheap at $10 to $15. And the only reason I would say to start there and not get like $100, $200, $300 melter is in the beginning, you don't know if you're going to continue candle making for a long time, and you can get quite a few candles done with just a basic pouring pitcher. And then of course, going up to the intermediate and expert level, if you know you're going to be making candles as a business or just making a lot in general, then a melter is definitely the way to go. Because with the melting pitcher, you can do 5 to 10 candles at a time, and with a melter, you can do 50 to 100 candles at a time. Once you get your candle wax melted and your candles poured, the next thing you're going to need is wick holders on top of the vessel. Now with this one, you can definitely start out very cheap. In the beginning, I used popsicle sticks with the hole drilled in the middle. A lot of people will use pencils and just curl the wick around the pencil, or even clothespins. They work extremely well, and you don't need to really go out and spend money on like 3D printed, which I absolutely love, but you definitely don't need them in the beginning unless you want them. But of course, once you jump up to the intermediate and expert level, you definitely want to get some wick holders that are a little bit easier to use, something that's real quick and efficient. And you can order a lot of the 3D printers at 20, 50, and 100 batches, which of course makes the process a little bit quicker, easier, and a little bit more efficient. Once you've poured 50 to 100 candles, you just go through, set the wicks on every single one of them, and you're done. And the nice thing about getting a better wick holder is they perfectly center your wick, and you're not worried about, which happens a lot with popsicle sticks or even clothespins, is when the wax starts to harden, it moves a little bit and it'll shift your wick sometimes. And of course, better wick holders will kind of eliminate that about 99% of the time, if not 100% of the time. Some of the other basic supplies once you get started is a thermometer and a stirring utensil. Now for the stirring utensil, you can use a bunch of different things. I like to use the metal cocktail stirrers or even a silicone spatula. I tend to stay away from wood stirrers just because they can absorb some of the wax and the oils. So definitely stay away from those. Go towards metal, silicone. They don't really absorb anything and they're very easy to clean. And then of course the thermometer, you can get pretty much anything. I know the dollar store sells one. Target sells just a basic meat thermometer for about $5, $6, $7. And I found the metal ones like this are a little bit more consistent as opposed to like an infrared. And one of the last things you're going to need at the beginner level is a heat gun. Now you can get away with a blow dryer. They work really well. I used one for probably 6 months to maybe even a year before I got a heat gun. I would definitely tell people just run out and get a heat gun. And all you're going to do with that is heat the top of the candle vessel so that you can smooth out the wax if you get uneven tops. And of course, with certain waxes, something like 6006, you will get sinkholes and you'll definitely need a heat gun to fix those. Now, again, if you're just trying to save money in the very beginning, like I said, a hair dryer does work fine. It takes a little bit longer. The air that comes out of it blows a little fast sometimes, so it can really move the wax around, whereas a heat gun heats up a lot hotter. The air doesn't come out as fast, and you can smooth out your tops within seconds as opposed to more like a minute with a blow dryer. So that's pretty much it for the basics of candle making. Like I said, I will be doing a video getting into more of the intermediate and at expert level or more advanced level for supplies that you might need. But just getting started, those supplies right there will get you started and at least get you to the point you know you're going to be making more candles and want to upgrade. So I hope that was helpful. If I missed anything, please let me know in the comment section down below and I'll update it in the next video. But until then, happy candle making and we'll see you in the next one.